Today's guest on the Virginia Investor Podcast is the owner of the Cash Offer Company. He's flipped houses. He owns short and long-term rentals, and he's the podcast host of Talented Investors That Share. Adam New, welcome to the podcast.
What's up, man?
Man, I'm happy to have you on this. I think you have a great story. You and your wife have done some amazing things in real estate in this market, and I look forward to diving into that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Help me understand. You have an interesting story from what I've heard, and I want to unpack it a little bit. So before real estate, what were you doing?
So we worked for a bank in the credit card processing kind of division. So a lot of sales on the road, driving all the time, and then into sales management and training, and just basically if it had to do with a bank and it had to do with the credit cards, then we were involved in it somehow.
In sales.
Yes. And
sales,
we both worked together. I don't know why we were legally able to do that, because we were like in the same department, in the same group. Like it was entirely like one day, literally, like I got hired, and then like my boss literally was like, "I love your attitude. I wish we could hire somebody like just like you." And I just kind of like sarcastically said like, "Well, yeah, I mean, you could hire my wife." And then they're like, "Sweet. Do you think we could get her on the phone?" And like that was it. Like 20 minutes later, she had the job too. And then
that's awesome.
Next thing you know, like she had to leave that organization so that I could be promoted.
That's cool. So even because one of my questions later on is like, how do you work so well with your wife? But I guess you've kind of done that before real estate. You've worked very closely with her in a professional setting.
Our entire married life we've worked together. So like we don't know any different. I also really like her too, so I think that's a good start.
I guess. Yeah. I guess that's a benefit. So you're working this more or less corporate job, but you're in sales and you're training people how to do sales. How did you find real estate? When did that come on your radar?
So the type of sales and the type of sales cycle of the credit card processing world is very minute to minute, hour to hour, day to day kind of stuff. So like I was getting burnt out. I think slowly we were starting to think that like maybe I had some health problems, or maybe like you see all those commercials on TV, like, do you think you have low T? And I'm like, maybe I do. Like, right. It's like, because you're not 19 anymore.
Right.
Like, maybe I do. And so like, I'm like, all right, I'm like looking into this sort of thing. And I'm like, no, I'm perfectly healthy. All my blood works fine. Everything else. Like the doctor was literally like, you should quit your job.
Wow.
Like it's just stressing you out. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Well, that's not really an option, and it's paying really well. And like, we're making more money every single year. Our lifestyle's getting better. And so then we're like, well, what other options are there out there? And like everybody at some point either reads Kiyosaki or some sort of related real estate thing. And then we're just like, all right, well, let's go down that rabbit hole. So we go down the YouTube rabbit hole. I think that kind of not OG sort of YouTuber was Max Maxwell back in the day, or like he was just doing a phenomenal job of sharing his journey. I think it was the first real person that young people connected with. And then so I looked into that, went to one of his events out in Texas, and then was just like, yeah, we should do this. And of course I was involving Amanda in it the entire way, and she's like, yeah, we should. And then COVID.
Awesome. Sweet. So that was leading up to COVID?
Right.
Okay, cool. So interesting timing. So you more or less found real estate yourself. I mean, other people like, were there any like suggestions where someone said you should check this out? Like, did anyone step in your life and find that, or was it I need to replace my income? Let's get on Google. Let's find some ways to do it, and then you found real estate that way?
Yeah. So locally, just a friend of mine, a gentleman named Joey Christian.
Okay.
So he worked for another investor here locally, and he was telling me about concepts like wholesaling and flipping, and heard the acronym BRRRR for the first time. Buy, rehab, rent, and refinance.
Right.
So like you hear all this stuff for the first time, and you're like, that sounds awesome. I wonder if I could do something like that. But you don't really pay too much attention to it because you're so busy.
Right.
So once we finally got to a point where we messed around with it, but then like we had our first child. So it's like every time we're like kind of get about 15% of the way there, life would happen, and it was like, all right, we'll just keep it on the back burner.
Right.
And then I was laid off March 12th. It's the same day that so it's the same day that Virginia schools closed down. It was the same day that like the NBA and the NFL, all these things just stopped. Might not have been the NFL; they weren't even playing. But like all of these big entities, Disney World, all on the same day, just like the world is coming to a close because we were going to do 2 weeks to flatten the curve.
Right.
And 540 days later, we came out of that.
Right. Right.
So yeah. So like at that point, it was like, all right, I'm laid off. It's the day before my birthday.
Wow.
Like, and so it was a terrible birthday weekend. And then it's like, well, we got to do something. And then I had all the time in the world and all the creative energy to put behind it because I wasn't soaked up in this stressed out, godforsaken sales cycle as a sales manager.
Yeah, and your back's against the wall at this point.
Right.
Like, so was that trip? Did you end up going to Texas?
Yeah, that was before I was laid off. Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
so you were interested in this real estate thing. You ended up going to Texas to get the feelers. There were always some sort of like distraction that got in the way from you taking it seriously, or at least taking the first like big actionable step. Yeah. And then you were laid off, which probably ends up being one of the biggest blessings of your life, I would assume, at this point. But
it's worked out pretty well.
Yeah. So it's March of 2020, which everyone knows what happens at that point. You're laid off and you start grinding. When you are learning about real estate, how do you where do you go from here? What are you studying? What are you learning? Is it more like the Burr method that you want to get into, or is it wholesaling, or what?
I think the first thing we looked into was wholesaling because because that's the classic, like, how do I get into real estate with as little money as possible, right?
Gateway.
We had a runway and we had met some guys down in Mississippi that were willing to show us how they operated their business.
Cool.
So like that was again the next catalyst that got us going. So like locally we learned these concepts and then we traveled a distance to see, okay, how would you do this as a full-fledged business, not just like a hobby or a part-time business. So we learned how to do that as a full-fledged business, and then we were just like, okay, let's just do this. Like, because we had money saved up, we'd made enough money in our W-2 to be able to give us the runway, and said let's just bet on ourselves. And I think ultimately that's you talked about working with your wife, but ultimately, if you really do believe in your spouse, you should prove it.
Right.
And so that was one of those moments where it was cathartic for us, and it was we're going to do this.
Right. Did she end up leaving her job?
So I think it was me that left first, because I got another job after I got laid off, but it was not a good culture fit. And very clearly I was no, this isn't going to work out. So I left first, and then I think she left probably within 2 or 3 months after me.
Got it.
Yeah.
And had you already done a deal, a wholesaling deal, or were you still getting after it, just learning how to structure the business and things like that?
I think I left when we had our second deal under contract. It wasn't even, I don't think we'd even closed anything yet, but it was we were starting to see a pipeline filling up, and we could imagine the third deal and the fourth deal coming in the next couple weeks. And it was we didn't even know that some deals fall through. Mm-hmm. We didn't know what title was yet. So we didn't know that there could be liens and judgments. We were this is going to be perfect. And it's going to be flawless. And so I don't think we knew any better.
Right. But how long was your runway? How many months do you think?
I'd say probably 9 to 12 was what we had available. And I think we probably used every bit of 6 of it.
Got it. Yeah. Because that sounds like a long time, but when you're starting a business, it's not. And there's all these expenses that you don't understand or that you don't know about, and things go wrong, like you said.
Yeah.
So when did you, I guess at that point you knew that this was going to be the business that you're going to start, and this is going to get you into real estate, and you were all in. Mm-hmm. What were some of the biggest hurdles that you hit in the first 6 months of this journey?
I think for me, it was the biggest, the most obvious thing was how do we get marketing to work? How do you market to the people? And everybody has an opinion about that, right? So I've got friends that are crushing it with texting and cold calling. We didn't connect with that at all. Mm-hmm. I knew people that were killing it with mail. And we were I don't know, do we want to be mail people? Is this oversaturated in our market? So just trying to figure out what made the phone ring, and then just from there, how do we have enough appointments that we'll have enough deals that we can just keep this thing going? Because I'd say the first 6 months, every single deal was mission critical. Mm-hmm. If this deal didn't go through, I'm not 100% sure we'll be doing this in a year.
Right.
So it was wild, but I think it was just survival mode, and then just we have to outsell our marketing. So we have to be so good that the marketing's not really working effectively, but our close ratio is so good that we can we can make it work anyway. We wouldn't be able to pass that off to a team of people, like Amanda and I could do it.
And I mean, you guys have sales backgrounds. You're sales instructors or trainers. And how did that play into when you met with a seller?
I think the only real advantage that gave us is that we were comfortable being in other people's spaces. So we were comfortable being in other people's businesses, which is very much like homes that are in rough shape. Like you go into an auto body shop that's locally owned in a bad part of town, like it's not a beautiful environment, right? The office is even worse. And I'm sitting in this, on a box or on what is liberally referred to as a chair, like it's probably like an oil pan, so I was comfortable being in people's spaces and being in dirty environments and being essentially getting my hands dirty. And I was comfortable being in crawl spaces, and I was comfortable being in places with fleas and just all this weird stuff. So it was just a general sense of comfort, which I think at some point kind of lent itself to confidence. So I think we had a little bit of an advantage there. But what we found was that the sales of credit card processing or working with business owners was 180 degrees from working with residential consumers. So there wasn't any strict processes that we brought to the table where we're haha, we have an advantage over.
Right. Did you try some of those same tactics and you were like, all right, this doesn't work?
It's obvious. Yeah. It's very quickly. They're just get the hell out of my house. Right. It's okay, cool. So that didn't work.
Did you show up in a suit and tie to some of these houses, or were you more aware of that when you were starting, that you just need to be a normal person?
No, I was never the 3-piece suit guy.
Good.
And I wasn't that even at the bank. In fact, to the point where they would have to tell me you have to wear a tie, dude.
Right.
I think I thought I needed to be a little bit more clean cut and professional, but I realized that was my look anyway. So It doesn't matter what I wear.
Right.
And then even on top of that, showing up in essentially what I'm wearing today, t-shirt, shorts, sneakers, that's all they care about.
Right.
Because again, that goes back to that comfortability thing. You're trying to pretend to be somebody you're not by wearing a suit to somebody's house in the middle of the woods.
Right. Yeah, and it's strange when these people could be in financial distress or are in financial distress. You're trying to buy their house and make a cash offer. You're showing up in a nice car and a suit and stuff like that. You're not on the same page.
No.
You need to be relatable to an extent of where you can help them, you can have a good conversation with them and help them out of their situation.
So we both drove Lexus sedans. And that was because that was a bank thing, that was a status thing, and we also drove so much we needed something comfortable that we could be on a conference call for 2 hours or coach somebody over the phone for hours on end, and it was just easy to drive. Very quickly sold those and just bought Toyotas because it doesn't matter how expensive the Toyota is, it's not a luxury vehicle.
Right.
So it was funny, we would trade in a Lexus that was probably worth 25 grand to buy a 50 grand Toyota, and all now you look like is a conservative businessman that's good with his money, even though it's twice as expensive as the car we sold.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. So there's plenty of people that just try wholesaling, right? There's a ton of people, right? And they'll go months or years without getting a deal, or maybe getting one deal. Especially in Richmond, the landscape of Richmond is, even back in the COVID era, was insane. I mean, you have one of the largest, I would guess, one of the largest wholesalers in the nation operates in Richmond, or a very, very large one. How did you guys start, and how were you successful? What made you stand out versus the thousands of other wholesalers that were trying to do it and the monsters that already existed in the market? Was that any benefit to you to have all that activity?
The guys that had market share and that were running big ad campaigns, they probably still don't know my name. It's okay. I'm not taking from them. You're coming into a big market. You're not taking from anybody. Yeah, if you're in a town with 800 people, you're going to take from somebody, right? Somebody has to lose in order for you to win. Richmond, we jokingly say more money is spent per person advertising in Richmond than probably just about anywhere relative to the size of the city. This isn't Los Angeles with millions and millions of people. This isn't Dallas. This isn't Houston. This isn't Atlanta, where you can be not only can you be successful, but you could be successful in one part of town in Atlanta, right? So you could be successful in one. I know a guy that does somewhere between probably the number's probably closer to $6 to $7 million wholesaling now in one part of LA.
Right. That's incredible.
So in a big city, you can get away with that. in Richmond, it just comes down to, all right, their marketing isn't hitting everyone. And then sometimes you're just hitting people at the right time, and they might have seen your postcard 6 times, or they might have seen an ad online, or they might have seen a post somewhere, and then like, but now they're ready. And then like weird stuff would happen where they'd be like, oh, your postcard was on my dad's nightstand, and we just figured it was a sign. We should call you. Okay, I'll accept it.
Right.
Like, I'll accept that deal. And, or just we figured out we looked into you and we realized you're like a small mom and pop company. We don't want to sell to somebody huge. Because at that point, it's almost like hard to distinguish between the largest operator in Richmond and a hedge fund.
Right.
You're running commercials. There are some people that turns off, which is weird because you think that provides social proof and other things. Like some people, the moment they start running commercials, there's a segment of the market that says they're too big for me. I need somebody a little bit more personal.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of a differentiator. Was just like, I'm just Adam.
Right.
I'm not the CEO of the cash offer company. I hate the name. I don't care about it. But like at the end, and also I'm going to stick with it because we're already invested in it, right? But like, I'm just Adam. You don't even need to know my last name because you don't care anyway. Like,
yeah, we're not going to be hanging out for a few years after this. How many deals or transactions do you think you did that first year since you started?
I know it was enough to replace our income. And so that was the thing, like very quickly we'd replaced our W-2 income. And that was good enough for us at that period.
You had good income, right? Like you had good income at that time. And within the first year, you hustled enough, worked hard enough, and figured it out at least enough to replace your W-2 income. Yeah. You and your wife's?
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was pretty cool.
And so it was pretty cool. Yeah, I bet. Especially with like COVID, during all the uncertainty going on, you're like, hey, I'm going to pivot, do this, which is something you've never done before.
Right.
And then you're going to just go ahead and replace your solid W-2 income that you had lost earlier in the year.
It got weird. Like you're doing appointments like through a mask.
Yeah.
Like it's just like, okay, here we go. And like it was weird, and like you had to adjust to that. Like and so, like, and but also you had to respect, like, this is a 93-year-old lady.
Yep.
I'm not taking her out in this process.
Right.
So like, let's respect, boundaries.
You eventually evolved to building a portfolio, right? What was that mindset shift like, and how did that happen? Like, what, maybe you had now done enough wholesale transactions to where you're like, okay, we have some capital, we're feeling pretty comfortable, now let's start playing the long game, I guess. But what was your mindset shift on that?
I think originally we thought that like that was going to be like our retirement plan. I don't necessarily know if I see it that way today. I think more now it's more of a tax play. So you make all this active income, you don't want to pay taxes on it. So like now you need to start depreciating some assets.
Right.
So like buying real estate is the fastest way to do that.
Right.
So it was like, okay, I'm going to buy these houses. And then, so, initially it was like, I can buy houses and burr them and still make money and cash out refi. And then interest rates went up. So like, okay, well, that becomes harder. You could still do it, but now like in order to burr this house, we have to not be making money on it, right? So maybe it'll still break even and we're not pulling 30, 40 grand out of it. But we also didn't make, so like you're taking from the active side of the business to do it. So one way or the other, you were doing that. So it's like now we're acquiring them. And like they'll cash flow still, but like it's nothing that makes me like get really excited.
Right.
And so now it's like strictly just to offset taxes.
Right.
And so which is a weird concept because you're like, well, because basically they tell you can either give it to Uncle Sam, or you can use it to somehow benefit yourself. And it does, but I liken it to like, imagine you were working at Starbucks, and the CEO of Starbucks comes along and says, hey, look, Steven, you're doing a really great job here, and I know you're making $20 an hour now. I'd like to start paying you $100 an hour. And so immediately you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And he says, oh, one small thing. You have to take 80 of it and you have to put it in your 401k. Okay, so now we're not going to Hawaii.
Right.
But like,
exactly.
So you don't feel rich today.
Right.
But you know that one day this will really, really benefit you.
Right.
But it ain't today.
Right.
So like to me, that's what building a portfolio is. I know one day I'll really be happy, but like, it doesn't buy a beach house.
Yeah.
Right.
I had this conversation with, I think, an intern this summer, and I don't know if she caught any of it, but I basically was like, I'm basically in business at this point to pay taxes. And it's like, you need to find avenues to get out of that. But like at peak, a large majority of what we make through the rest of the year is just going to be saved to like pay the tax bill.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like you have to have different alternatives to get rid of some of that income so that doesn't happen, because it's really depressing.
Yeah, and now bonus depreciation has gone back up.
Right.
So like now that's an even better play, and you can spend less to get more done.
Right. So. Yeah, it's a great tool. Your criteria, you touched on it a little bit, but your criteria, how do you decide between what you're gonna keep in your portfolio versus what you're gonna wholesale versus what you're gonna have as a short-term rental, et cetera? Just all the numbers?
Yeah, I mean, like it's some things identify themselves as an easy wholesale, right? Okay, so if it's a 150-year-old house, it needs $250,000 worth of work, and even after all of that, you might make $30,000-$40,000, but you have to spend a year and a half of your life to do it and get it all permitted and get tax credits and all that other stuff. I'm probably just going to wholesale that one, right? If something comes along where you're like, okay, I could paint it, replace the floors, maybe remodel a bathroom, and make 70 grand, I'll flip that. You know, but if I see the ability to make roughly the same amount of money whether I flip it or wholesale it, I'll probably wholesale it, or now wholesale it, you know, where we're just buying it and then throwing it back on the market.
Right.
So there's a lot of options there, but it really is house specific. It's not necessarily like an overall strategy.
Right.
So sometimes some months or quarters we'll find ourselves being like, man, we're really flip heavy this quarter, and then the next quarter we're like, man, we wholesaleed nearly everything. It just depends.
When you're wholesaling, on the buy side, you have buyers that you work with, and I would imagine you have close relationships with several of the buyers that you work with. What's the best thing a buyer can do if they want to get in tight with a wholesaler that is putting out deals?
Speed to decision, and like how easy it is to work with you, and just generally speaking, be a nice person. Like, people will call me up and they'll just be demanding from the get-go, and it's like, I don't know if that's like a persona from days of past where you just have to like go in and bulldog everything.
Right.
But like, that's just not me. So if you call me up and you start making any demands, I'm just getting there going like,
it's not worth it.
Who is this guy?
Right.
Like, I'm not working with him. Like,
right.
So, but if you're like, you know, if you're nice to me, if you explain what you're trying to accomplish, you don't try to do the fake it till you make it thing. Like, dude, this is real money in real people's lives. Like, no, there's no faking it. You need to come clean. Like, hey, listen, I've only done a deal, or this is my first deal. What do I need to do? You might not even do business with me, but we'll still set you up so that you will eventually, or with somebody else quickly. Yeah, just how quickly can you get hands on money? So is it your money? Is it cash? That's kind of the best situation. Is it somebody I know's money? Right? That I can be like, I know if that guy says he's good for it, that he's good for it. Is it, you know, are you trying to go with like a hard money lender that might need a couple extra inspections? That's, you know, that's kind of the next step down. And then if you need like a Wells Fargo, like, we're not going to be able to work together, right?
Yeah.
So like that's what I mean by speed. And then also like, how quickly can you determine like this, I'm ready to say yes to this at this price.
So you guys, you're building this business, and now you have a portfolio that you hold on to. It's an actual business now. Like, there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of pieces. You need to worry about operational expenses and everything else. I recall you guys talking about the profit first system. Are you guys still doing that?
Oh yeah.
Can you explain what that is and how that works?
Yeah. So essentially it's just like the Dave Ramsey envelope method, but just for a business, right? If you were to distill it down to something else. So for every $100 we get in, we take a certain number of those dollars and we put it towards general business expenses. Certain amount of it is like, we consider that quote unquote profit, right? And then like what we pay ourselves, and then some set aside for taxes and whatever. So that we're never really caught off guard by anything.
Right.
You know, so like at the end of the year, like if anything, it'll be good news that we didn't spend the entire tax thing. So like we can now add that to our income. So we're never going to be caught at the end of the year going, oh my gosh, we have this massive tax bill. How on earth are we ever going to pay it?
Right. That's a great way to operate. I think as soon as anything that I've done, like whether it be my company or Peak or my company or the investments, the money gets basically put away first, and then we starve the company to operate on what remains. Yeah. And then that way we're making good decisions on the expense side, basically. So we're not living above our means, saying like, oh, we got all this extra money, let's see where we're at the end of the month, right? Yeah. And so as soon as that money comes in, it gets put away like it never even happened, and then it goes to reserves or taxes or anything else. And then we have this limited amount of cash that we can operate on, which still, like, if we need to strengthen our team, then sure, we can pull more in. But it's a great plan to put money in certain buckets first, instead of like It's more proactive than reactive, I think.
Yeah, I mean, David Richter is a genius in that regard, and like how all of that works related to real estate investors specifically. And he didn't invent profit first, but he retooled it specifically for real estate investors, wrote the book about it, and then I think also consults about that as well. And I think he also like runs a fractional CFO company. So like it's pretty extensive. So like if that's something you're looking into, like David Richter's your guy. Yeah. But I think the biggest thing is that like, so real estate investors tend to get paid in chunks of money, right? So like let's say you make $100,000 on a just profit in a deal. That's not the average profit, but let's just say you suddenly do. If you just put that all in one account, you're like, I can go buy a Tahoe.
Right.
I can pay cash for it, right? You know, boom. And then it's like, okay, well, maybe 15,000 of that was taxes.
Right.
Okay, maybe like how much do you want to make? Like yourself. Well, let's say I want to make 30 of that. Okay, cool. So you make 30%. So we're already 45 is out the door. It's like, okay, well, what about how much money do we spend on marketing? Like, so like next thing you know, you're down to what's in the Tahoe fund is $8,000. Okay, we are not paying cash for a Tahoe today. But God forbid you did, and then next month you're going, we have no cash.
Right.
How are we going to pay the credit card bill? So yeah, it prevents a lot of that trouble.
In scaling, have you run into like the cash flow issues or like hard lesson learned for cash flow, or have there been other larger like operational issues that you guys run into?
So I wouldn't necessarily like it's cash flow. It's more so like, okay, we'll say we want to accomplish 2 or 3 things. And if we are in the process of doing that, naturally you're a little bit cash poor. Like we just bought a cabin in Luray. Like we are in that process, we will spend a lot of money to get it all fixed up and furnish it and do everything so that we can live in it. But like that's an investment that means because we did that, we can't go do something else, right? So like it's, again, you don't just go say, and now I'll go pay cash for the Tahoe. Like it is, once we get comfortable with what's in the account, then we'll make a decision that will keep us uncomfortable. Right. So then we'll immediately go out and make the next, what are we going to do with it now? Right. So we never really keep a lot of money on hand, but like also like we keep enough to know how long the runway is. And so like those metrics work fine. But yeah, it's not like we're just hoarding cash.
Have you guys ever had to pause operations to like take a look at where you are and like measure where you're at, or have you been able to pretty much like keep things going consistently throughout?
We've kept things going consistently throughout. Yeah, and I think that's just the nature of it, and that's just the sales side of us that's just like, okay, even if there is a problem, we will outsell it.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So let's talk creative deals, because you probably don't get to where you are with growing an awesome portfolio and doing a bunch of wholesale deals and things like that without being creative on your purchases. So what are some of the tools you use to get creative when buying real estate?
So I'll say that it's more like house in person specific. You hear all these people say like, I want to get into subject to. Right. Okay, cool. Then you need to talk to people that makes sense for. So what'll happen is like you'll meet someone that has $500,000 in equity in their home, and then you're like, I'm going to see if they'll sub to this, and it's like, no, they want their cash. But like, there's nothing you can say that's going to make that person be like, yeah, I'll let you take over my mortgage. Like, no, they want the cash, right? So I think just being available and learning what you need just in time instead of like just in case. So like people are like, okay, I need to learn how to creative finance. I need to do notes. I need to do all this stuff. And I'm like, we waited until we got to a point where we're like, I don't think a cash offer is a really good fit for this person. What other options are there available? And then we learned. And so because we had a pipeline, we could test out some of that stuff.
How important has your network been to you, and what does your network look like? Because it strikes me that one of the first moves was go to Texas and like learn from people there, and then you said you had someone else in maybe Mississippi that would help show you there. So along this time, you and your wife are not just doing this by yourself, right? You have established a network that is helping guide you through these things. So when you hit these deals that you cannot make a cash offer on, you probably have a Rolodex of people you can call and just be like, oh, this guy does sub 2, this guy does novations, this guy does all these different, seller finance, whatever. Yeah. Tell me about your network and how you built that.
So initially we knew nobody. We had one friend in Richmond that did real estate. Okay, great. What can you do with that other than go to that one person? And you always be limited by that person's expertise, knowledge, and where they're at in their business. So that's where YouTube comes in. You're just getting on there and be like, okay, who do I connect with? And then eventually I saw 2 guys on a podcast, you know, a national podcast, and I was like, they're kind of like me.
Right.
So like,
Right.
I'm going to call them and see if they're crazy enough to let me go to Mississippi and hang out with them.
Right.
So like, you know, and I did. And they just were like, yeah, come on down.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, and listen, there was compensation involved in that.
For sure.
You know, so it's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
like they're just, but like, yeah, that's what it was. It's like, I saw you on a podcast. I think you're cool. I'd like to get to know you. I mean, as blunt as possible, right? And then they were cool enough to just like, we could drive around with them for a couple of days. They showed us what they did in their office, software they use, like just all that stuff. And then, you know, just their philosophy, and we went from there. But now today, it's just a matter of making friends.
Right.
Everywhere we go, we make
Yep.
friends. That's all Amanda and I do at this point. Like, and so now we go to like national masterminds with people at even higher levels, and it's like we make friends there.
Right.
So now you got friends in Washington State, and then you got friends in Oregon, and then you got friends in Texas, and you know, they're everywhere now.
I like how you say it's just a matter of making friends, because I think the word network causes you to overthink it.
Yeah.
Like, people will overanalyze what a network needs to be, or what a mentor needs to be, or what a coach needs to be. For me, I've been lucky, but for me, it's just been like, just meet people and just talk to them and be friends with them and try to help them. And then you have this big network of successful people that know what they're talking about that you can call on if you need to. And they're going to call on you if they need you for stuff. And that's how things work. But there's so many people that are like, well, I haven't found the right coach yet, or I haven't found, this, whatever. But there's a few common threads of all the guests I've had on my podcast. One of them is they take action. They do things that normal people wouldn't, meaning like normal people watch YouTube, millions, many millions of them.
Sure.
It's very rare that they're going to contact that person and like try to learn from that person states away across the nation, or halfway across the nation. So just that idea of going to Texas and taking action, and going to Mississippi and learning from these guys, but just reaching out. Like, I remember back in the day, this was way before real estate, but I thought I had this concept for a business, and it was a fitness facility that really had the feel and the culture of Mission Barbecue. And Mission Barbecue at the time, I have no idea how big they are now, but at the time it was like a $60 or $70 million a year company. It could have been 160 or 170. I can't remember. But it was a large company. And I went to their website and said, I would like literally on a website form, like inquiry, and said, I would like to talk to the founders of Mission Barbecue to just understand their mindset and how they created this culture. A week later, they responded and they said, come up to Maryland, meet us at 6 a.m. at the restaurant before it opens, and we'll spend an hour with you. And so I showed up to Maryland. I can't remember the details, but I showed up in Maryland. I believe it was Columbia, Maryland. So if there's a big Mission Barbecue there, that's probably where it was. But in some like mall center or whatever. But I got there at maybe like 4 a.m. or 3, whatever it was. It might have been like meet at 8 o'clock, but I got there like 3 or 4 hours early because you never know traffic, and I'm not going to screw this up. And I spent an hour with them and just got to talk to them. And they gave me like a little free like lunch for Mission Barbecue and said like, cool, it's been fun. But it was interesting because I was able to talk to them and get some insight and information. And I've done that like a few times throughout my life, but it's almost like people overthink it. Just reach out and ask a question. Like, the worst things those guys in Mississippi could have done is said like, it's way more expensive than you can afford, or that makes sense, or just not respond or say no. And then you go on to the next guy that might be able to help you.
Yeah, people are remarkably accessible. I think we tend to obsess over like athletes and pop stars and people like that. Like, they have entire teams of people to keep you away from them.
Right. Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
like my daughter loves Taylor Swift, and she's 5-6 years old now. So like, she said like, do you think that I could ever meet Taylor Swift? And I'm like, yeah, maybe one day. But like, in the same time, I'm like, that's difficult.
Right.
Like, it's not like we're gonna bump into her at Starbucks.
Yeah.
So either a lot of money is gonna get spent, or like we get really lucky,
Right.
or put in a tremendous amount of work to get her attention in some capacity.
Right.
But she sees it as a 5-year-old, right? I'm just gonna go and like hang out with this person because that's what I do in my world as a 5-year-old.
Right.
But like, YouTube people are pretty accessible.
Right.
Yeah, don't be weird about it, but like, but like sometimes, but I think also being upfront about like your intentions of a conversation
Right.
goes a long way for them being able to figure out like, are they being weird about it or not?
Right.
Like, I'm looking to set up a business in Virginia. I connected with you on YouTube. You do business pretty much the way I think I would do business. So we're not in the same market, which helps out a lot.
Right.
Right. So I figured, if if you're in Mississippi and I'm in Virginia, we're not going to be taking from each other.
Yep.
So, I'm willing to pay.
Right.
I'd love to see how you do operations. Just nice guys. They were like, yeah, sure, let's do it.
We do that in property management around the nation. I am in a mastermind of 6 or 7 of really reputable, strong property management companies in different states. And we'll never compete, but we share everything with each other, anything from like any issues that we're facing, and we all understand each other and each other's language, and we've grown to know each other and our families and things like that. It's really special to have those relationships, and I think you can do that in your market with real estate investing, but when you do want to start like a legit company that's going to grow and scale, go outside of your market and find people that have always done it or have already done it, and then see if they're willing to spend an hour with you or let you come visit them or something like that. And I think that sort of action is what sets people like you apart from people that don't really do as much as they hope they would do.
Yeah. We were having dinner with a couple in real estate, and the wife, who wasn't as involved in the business, just like casually dropped like a question like, so like, how much are you spending on marketing? Like, what channels is it specifically? And like, what ad copy are you finding that's the most successful? And he had to literally be like, I'm sorry, she's not aware of the question she's asking, right? And it makes sense. She doesn't know anything about our business, but eventually you're like, reveal everything.
Yeah, what's your secret sauce?
Yeah, exactly. Reveal the recipe. And he had to literally be like, my apologies.
Yeah.
Like, right? And like, I wasn't offended by it in the slightest, right?
Right.
But it was one of those like, I'm probably going to be fairly vague because we're both direct competitors.
Right.
And we're both in Richmond.
Yep.
And like, obviously we know what each other do to an extent, but like, we're at the end of the day, there will be some distance between us.
Right.
Now, had they lived in Seattle,
Wide open.
all day.
Yeah. And then you're asking questions about the same, like they're going to be willing to share that exact same thing.
Right.
Yeah. It's the same, like I'll go out to coffee meetings with other property management companies that are in Richmond, and there will be owners of those companies, and there'll be smaller companies that want to get big, and they'll ask me questions, and they'll say, well, what are you doing here? And what are you doing there? And I definitely will share and provide insight and stuff like that, but I have to stay vague on some things where I'm like, I'm not, I spent years killing myself trying to come up with like this system and this program.
Right.
I'll give you like the basic foundation to lead you down the right path.
Right.
But otherwise that work's got to be put in.
Yeah. I'm going to leave you better than I found you.
For sure.
Just like,
100%.
Like, let's leave some mystery in this, right? Like,
yeah. What's the fun if I told you everything? What's the fun in that?
And like, not that you would even be able to execute on it, but there are some people that are at a
That's the
level that I know
difference.
they can. So like, okay, well then it makes sense that we would be a little more reserved.
Right. How's your lender relationships changed throughout your real estate journey?
I have it just is the weirdest, easiest, best relationships ever when it comes to lending. So a long time ago, somebody said something like, if you're working with somebody as a wholesaler and they're a buyer, just ask them like, hey, would you ever be interested in lending on something like this? And just see what they say. I don't have anything in mind specifically right now, but like in the future, would you ever be, because clearly they have cash to buy something. Mm-hmm. So like, would you also be willing to lend money? And so I asked that question to a guy in the West End where we were walking a house that he was going to purchase for me to flip. And then he was like, I've never given it any thought. Let me get back to you. And like a couple of days later, he's like, yeah. And now like he's my sole source of funds for the last, X number of years. And
it's incredible.
I'm sure I could find cheaper money, but like, why? I want him happy. Right. I want him to retire. He's retired now. I want him retired. And I want him to travel the world on this joker's interest from now till the end of time.
Right.
Because I'm thankful for him. So like anything I can do to make his life better, I'm happy to do.
And you guys know how each other operates. You know the expectations on each deal, and like I've never been a fan of stirring the pot to save a couple of bucks. Now, if it gets like unreasonable, then that's one thing. But if it's like maybe you could find it cheaper, again, just like any other company, you can always find it cheaper.
Sure.
But is that necessarily who you want to do business with? Yeah. And I think if you have this lender relationship in place, you don't have to go anywhere else. It's unlimited capital for what you need, and you know exactly how they work, their paperwork and everything. And you're keeping each other happy. That's incredible.
Right. Yeah. So it goes back to ease. Like you were asking, like, what's it like for certain people to work with you? I'm like, do you make it easy for me?
Right.
I want to work with you more now. Like
that advice you gave is pretty solid. I actually don't think I've heard that before. Is just ask the person that is the cash buyer, that is using their own cash if they would be willing to lend.
Yeah.
Now, there's a fair amount of private lenders out there, and they make themselves pretty accessible. But at the same time, you might be able to have that real awesome relationship with that cash buyer that would rather lend at this point in their career or their timeline, investing timeline.
Yeah, and there's been seasons where, like, I've tapped him out, or he's been investing in other things. Like, it's, and so I've gone to other lenders here locally in Richmond. But, like, then on top of that, now I have a reputation.
Right.
A good one.
Right.
So, like, they're like, yeah, let's have a conversation. Like, I was hoping maybe one day you would call. Like, because they're like, yeah, because I'm convinced you're actually going to give me my money back. So like it's good now.
It's a good bet. Why Richmond, Virginia? Have you ever, obviously you're from here, but have you ever considered going to different markets, and why do you mostly stay in Central Virginia area?
You just draw a circle of, driving an hour around Richmond.
Right. Why haven't you, because there's so many people that are like, go to Mississippi or go do this or go do that. What caused you to stay concentrated in this area?
I just don't want to really leave Richmond. All of my friends and family are here. So, like, there's not really, like, I wouldn't mind owning a house in another state or spending the majority of my time in another state, like, if it gets to that point. But, like, and I'm sure I'm making my life more hard by doing that. I know a lot of guys that are killing it remotely in other states. So there's always that option, right? You don't have to necessarily do it in person. I just choose to do that, right? I like Richmond because I know it. And so it may just be going back to, like, it's easier ... for me.
Right.
I don't know if it's easier for everybody or if it's easy overall, but we've made it work. And so now it's like, well, like we're all in on Richmond.
And you still have deal flow,
right?
And you have relationships, you have reputation, you know the areas. Like, doesn't really, it probably makes sense to go somewhere else when the deal flow, like when that pipeline shuts off.
And we still do deals outside of Richmond, but like somebody goes to a website, like there's a Richmond, Kentucky. Right. So like,
nice.
There's a Richmond, England. Like, so it's like they're like, you don't know how the algorithm and how people find each other and all that other stuff. Like, so people will call us from out of state. People will call us from remote parts of Southwest Virginia. And we're like, send us some photos. We'll take a look at it. We'll send somebody out there to walk it. Like, we'll find a way to make it work.
As a husband and wife team, Amanda is incredible. She's awesome. What roles do you play versus her? Have you guys kind of like, well, I'm certain you have at this point 5 years later, but have you established very specific roles, or are you just often just wearing all the hats?
Yeah, I mean, it is so siloed to this point. So we were at Rich Lennon's meeting, Richmond Ring, and my real estate agent was sitting next to me, and Rich was asking for a market update. Like, does anybody have any updates? And she said, Joan got both of your houses sold within a week, and for 5 to 10 more than asking. And I was like, is that true? And she's like, yeah, it's true. I was like, awesome, cool. And I was like, yeah, Joan over here did this, whatever. And then somebody said, in what part of town?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know.
Help me out.
Like, I was like, I don't know. And then
Virginia.
And Rich, like, with the microphone in his head, is like, you don't know what part of town these flips that you just did are in? And I'm like, no. Like, because, like, I signed the contract and I've never looked at it since then.
Right.
Like, I've kept the relationship with the seller, but, like, I'm acquisitions.
Got it.
I'm acquisitions, podcasts, just some very basic things that I'm good at in this business and nothing else. So, like, we have a project manager that manages the projects for the flips and the wholesales and all that other stuff. We've got an assistant overseas that kind of handles overnight requests or handles things that are just like really mundane, like staying on hold with Virginia Power for 2 hours.
Right. Yep.
Permits, things like that are just literally just the time wastes, but they know how to do it really well. And then Amanda is more of the like money side, the marketing side, the KPIs, what's working, what's not working. And like she's been the one that's been able to like help me figure out like how I need to manage my life in order to be able to be better at acquisitions, because she's got all the numbers. I've got all the feeling. I've got all the gut. I've got all the intuition. I've got all the anecdotal data. But she can literally say like, here's why you're feeling that way.
Right.
And they're like, oh, it makes sense. Or you're wrong. Or you're just wrong.
Right.
Like we said something the other day. I made a comment. We haven't really bought a whole lot of homes from tired landlords. And she was like, what are you talking about? That's like half of them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, it's not. And she's like, all right, pull up an address. And I'm like, what's their story? Oh, they're this. Oh, yeah, it was a tired landlord.
Yeah.
And like our third one, fourth. It's like, oh, okay. I think I know, but it's best I'm kept in the dark.
That's why it's great to have a mix of data and intuition.
Right.
Because you need both.
Right.
And sometimes your intuition's a little out of whack, or you get so caught up in the bubble of what you've been doing for years that you're not thinking clearly. You're not seeing the reality of things. And I've been guilty of that. But then you have the data, which doesn't always show the whole picture, but it shows a good portion of it. Sure. And the two together are excellent. Yeah. So what advice would you give to other couples that want to go into business together?
So I think number one, you have to like each other. And that sounds dumb, but like I've met a ton of people that says, I could never work with my husband. Right. And they're right.
Right. Yeah. 100%.
I could never work with my wife. And you're right. You're married. I'm not saying you should get divorced, but like you're probably right that you shouldn't work together.
Right.
Amanda and I have been best friends from day one. And by working with each other in corporate America, we always knew each other's intentions. So like we never had to be like, ugh, I wonder what that Amanda girl wants out of me in this situation. Like we knew. That doesn't mean we've never fought.
Right.
That doesn't mean it never got heated. It's just I trust her and I also know what she's capable of. And so that's where it comes down to, like, if you're willing to bet on somebody, bet on them. Like actually make that happen. I can't say the same thing. Like I know plenty of couples where I'm like, I don't know if I would hire the husband.
Right.
I don't know if I would hire the wife. Like I think they would bring your business down.
Right.
Like you to thine own self be true.
Yeah. I honestly, like, listening to you talk about that, me and my wife are a very strong team. Like always have been. We met within a group of people that basically put teamwork and communication at like the highest tier trait that a human could have. And we met in that group and we were working out together and suffering together and helping each other out and hoping that each other wins and stuff. And our relationship was basically founded on being a team and supporting each other. I don't know that we could work together. And I think that because being a team in a relationship in a family setting is different, where like here I can get, now my team, like I don't come off as very aggressive to my team, because now I look at my team and say, I want them to win and they have to win before I win. In every stage of the game, my team has to win before I win, and they always come first. But in my brain, I'm very aggressive about like business and what decisions we make and the speed at which we work and stuff like that, where I'm like, I would never want to put this beautiful relationship at risk that I love so much, that we're such a strong team, and move them to where it matters if we make money. Like, I would never want that to happen. I don't know that it would work for us if we did it. Like, that would be a good idea for our dynamic, although we're such a good couple together as husband and wife and father and mother and stuff like that.
No, it's like know yourself. If you had to work together though, then it would come down to like
that's different.
Yeah, making sure that, and that's not the case with us. We didn't have to work together. It just works well together. Right. But like, let's just say you had to work with your wife, then there should be very specific things in the business that like she has complete autonomy for, and complete faith and trust over.
Right. Yep.
So like she has to be allowed to make mistakes. So Amanda hasn't been in acquisitions forever, but we were like triple booked on appointments and whatever, and I was just like, this seems like a pretty slam dunk one. I need you to go do that. Like, mistakes were made on that appointment. Okay. Like, she's not me. She has been doing it every single day. Like, I can't expect me to show up when she's been benched for 4 years from going on appointments.
Yeah.
Like, so the ability to screw up, and I kind of do that same with like a new employee. There's nothing you can do I can't undo.
Right. Yeah, I guess I haven't put a lot of thought into this, but it's interesting to think about, because when you say that, like, well, what if you had to work together? Then that actually makes me feel different, because we're a freaking team and we're going to figure it out, right? And we're going to be the best team ever. And so like I don't know, it's weird. Like my brain, right when you said that, I was like, we would make it work, and we would be a strong team. Yeah. And it's weird because I literally 5 seconds before that, I'm like, it wouldn't work. But if we had to work together, we absolutely would figure it out. And I have no doubt in my mind. I think it's almost, for me, it's like, I just would never want to hold her accountable to make money, because that is that's for other types of relationships, right? And it's like, I would never want to put us in a position to where I'd want to hold her accountable to make money. When my own team makes mistakes, though, I treat it the same way. I'm like, fine, I make a ton of mistakes. This is good. Less, I still want you to make decisions. I still want you to do your job, make decisions. I don't want you to be scared to do that. But that's an interesting concept, because you and Amanda both are super successful. You have awesome relationships, a strong network, and it clearly you guys are a strong team working together. And I think there are plenty of couples that maybe don't invest or maybe don't go down this route of financial freedom because they're not sure how to work together, or one won't let the other do the thing or whatever. And it's interesting to see that both of you just jumped in and said, hey, we're gonna crush it.
Well, I think the other thing too is that, like, oftentimes, and I'm gonna stereotype investors here. It's a very male-dominated industry, right? So the guy says, I want to learn about landlording, so I'm gonna go to landlording school. Goes to landlording school, learns everything he needs to know, gets jacked about the concept of Airbnb arbitrage, right? So okay, not my thing, but like, go for it, dude. And so he comes home in a manic state and is like, babe, this is what we're going to dedicate our lives to.
Right.
And it's just like, Steven, is there something you need to tell me? Like, like, because you're not making any sense right now. You're talking about theoretical concepts and how you could make all this money and cash flow. We don't have to own the asset and this, blah, blah. You sound crazy.
Right.
So the question I'm always asking everybody is like, where's your wife right now?
Yeah.
Like, if you like, you're the one learning, she's sitting at home. And so, like, there was a time when Amanda and I were sitting next to each other at a real estate event, and they were talking about Airbnb specifically. And Amanda looks at me and says, we're going to do that. I didn't say anything. Had I gone home and said we're going to do Airbnb, we never would have done it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she had ownership.
So it's like, don't like quit trying to change people. Like, expose them to this, and if they see what you see, then like you're off to a really good start.
Right.
But they could also say, "Oh God, that sounds terrible."
Mm-hmm.
All right, well there's your answer.
Right.
Yeah.
I've also learned. I had a kind of a more in-depth conversation with Jason Seward on this. There's also a disconnect between how much money you need to make, meaning. If you are at a certain point of success, your wife may be happy with that. Mm-hmm. And if you keep killing yourself to work harder and have more stress and have health problems and not be around your kids and not be around your family to do Airbnb arbitrage and make an extra $1,500 a month or whatever, or $10,000, whatever, if you do it at scale. But it may not be that compelling. What is your family's financial goals and what is okay? And when I talked to Jason about this, like, one of the kind of craziest things in my head was I felt like I needed to accomplish something incredible for my wife, because I love her so much and I love my kids and I want them to have the life they've always dreamed of, right? And so I start having heart issues, or like start, just getting out of shape, or I'm working 100 hours, I'm doing this, and I go home and I tell my wife, we made X amount of dollars this month. It's more than we could have ever imagined. Her response typically is like, cool. Yeah. Like, I don't, like, we're good. Like, not we're good. Like, we haven't, you know what I mean? Like, we haven't like made it, but like where we at right now, she's satisfied. Yeah. And it's quickly back to like, she'll listen to me talk and she'll say, and I've learned, this is like a couple of years ago, I learned this lesson, but she would listen to me talk, and then quickly, like, once I was done, the next like question would be something along the lines of like, did you hear what your son did today? That's what she's focused on, right? Yeah. She's like, okay, good. I'm glad you're happy. Let's talk about our kids, let's talk about this thing, or like he starts T-ball or something like that. And it took a few times, but it hit me that I was like, is this all like, and so I could see where the person rushing home to their husband or wife and saying, we're going to do all of this and do all that. Is it really necessary at this point? Is it really the same goal that your husband or wife has? Is it still in alignment? But I would imagine that probably you and Amanda have these conversations of like, what is enough and what is the amount of work or scale that you guys want to get into and things like that.
In fact, we have Wednesday meetings, we have weekly meetings. Awesome. We have, and those are moderated. We have quarterly meetings. We have consultants. Like, in all of it's tailored around like, how can we pull ourselves further?
That's cool.
That's awesome. To go do what we're really passionate about, right? So Talented Investors That Share is like, that is redirecting our creative mind, because if it's all acquisitions all the time, then I'm at a loss. I'm just too tired at the end of the day.
Right.
And it's like, how can we pull you out of each step with this? So like, I don't answer the phone anymore. 5 years ago I did. So, I'm not comping houses before we're going out there. So that part of my brain's now turned off. So like literally to the point where it's not an uncommon thing for me to say, like, that's not an Adam question.
Mm-hmm.
Like people will say, oh, well, do you want me to replace the HVAC with this house or whatever? Because like they know Adam and Amanda. So like a GC will call Adam. Right. And I'll be like, why are you even calling me, dude?
Right.
And I'm not being a jerk about it, but like I can't answer your question.
Yeah.
Can't answer your question. Like not because I could stop, learn what's going on with this house, do whatever, and then be like, yes, so I think we should replace that HVAC. Right. But like if you need an answer right now,
right, call the
project manager.
Right.
If they don't have an answer, they'll call Amanda.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and so to Rich's comment when he was like on the microphone, like, how do you not know what part of town they're in? And I'm like, because I've set that aside. Yep. And now, so I go to do my appointments, and then I'm like, shoot, it's like 2:00. I got nothing else to do today. I'm gonna take Ellie to King's Dominion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's life.
Yeah, so that's like I'm gonna go do that now. Whereas before it was like I had to do, I have to comp tomorrow's houses, do whatever, and then by the time I half-assed that, it's 4:45, right. And then we start dinner.
Yep. Like and then you groundhog.
Yeah.
The same. Yeah. So
all day long.
What's next for Adam and Amanda?
I think long term we're looking to, obviously we're continuing to expand our business here in Richmond, but also to continue to pull out of it at the same time. I really want to be more a CEO than I want to be just like day-to-day operations. Mm-hmm. I've got some work ahead of me to do that. Same thing for Amanda. I think we focused more on her right now. And so like she has put a tremendous amount of weight behind Talented Investors That Share. And she's putting effort into that Facebook group and providing, it's our give back to the community. And, there's about 9,000 people in there at this point.
Awesome.
And so it's, so they're all over the country, all investors, various skill levels and sizes. And that's really where we'll go from there. So like now, because of what I've pulled out of, like I can focus on the podcast, and basically it wouldn't surprise me if there's an educational business in there somewhere along the lines. Yeah. But also too, like buying other businesses because of what we learned doing this. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of this stuff is universal. Right. KPIs and balance sheets and all this other, like a lot of it's universal. So like now we have the confidence to go buy, I'm just gonna use it as an example, like an HVAC business or something. Mm-hmm. So we could do that. Like we know what we're doing quarter to quarter and maybe in the next 2 to 3 years, but like it's always subject to change.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's really like passionate wise, like that's what we're doing right now with Talented Investors This Year.
Awesome. So how can people get in touch with you or get in touch with Amanda or learn more about Talented Investors That Share or your company? How should they reach out?
So the podcast is like the easiest way to just hear us talk. Right.
Yeah, right.
Because the world needs more podcasts. So that's the quickest way to do that. Our story is episode number 1, right? And so from there, we get to talk to fine folks like yourself and, work our way through what's going on locally and just kind of help people learn what's happening in real time. The Facebook group, Talented Investors That Share, that's where the sauce is getting shared on a regular basis. We're going live in there. That's where it's a heavy educational component to it. So like if somebody's like, how do I get started in real estate? Like that's a great place to be. Somebody's asking like, how do I scale? That's a great place to be. How do I understand marketing? Like Amanda just did like 2 or 3 weeks in a row on like various types of marketing and the pros and cons to those. So like that's where the actual sauce is being shared. Yeah, so that's how I would get in touch with you. If you friend me on Facebook, I won't know who you are. Yeah. Just join the group.
Yeah.
Join the group.
Yeah. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah, just join the group.
Yeah.
And I'll get random requests, and I'm like, I don't know who that is.
For me, there has to be a certain number of mutual friends.
Yeah. Oh, all day.
And if there's like a certain number or less, like I just can't do it. It doesn't work. So
because you'll see like no friends in common from Wisconsin, and like it's not happening.
Yeah.
But like that's a good opportunity for you to join a group and get to know us.
Oh, and have some comments, share some value, and then we're like, we start seeing you and stuff like that. Yeah,
exactly.
That's the right way to do it.
But also we're still incredibly accessible. So like if you're in Virginia and you are selling a home, the Cash Offer Company is available to you. So that's just www.thecashoffercompany.com. And then, it's a pretty simple business. You call, you're going to get Sherry. Yeah. You're going to talk to her. And if it makes sense, you'll have a conversation with me. And then we'll see what we can do for you.
Cool. We'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
All right, Adam, thank you so much. Do you have any final thoughts before we close out?
We're
good to go.
I've talked a lot.
Man, thanks so much for sharing some of your insight, knowledge, experience, information, talented investors that share. Check out the Facebook group. Awesome group of people. If you're in Richmond, link up with Adam at some point. Adam and Amanda doing some incredible things. Thank you for coming on the podcast and adding value to our community. I appreciate it.
Thanks for spending a day with me.